but the blood will mark the houses where you are. Seeing the blood, I will pass over you. How many families, houses, have been marked by blood since we last celebrated the Passover of the Lord? Not the blood of the lamb sprinkled on the doorposts and the lintel, but the blood of children, teenagers, adults. Across the world, especially across our country, and right here in Lexington, how many? How many schools have been marked by blood since we last celebrated the Lord's Passover? Thank God there are those students from Parkland, Florida, who are saying what should have been said a long time ago. We just can't accept this bloodshed. And who are doing what our faith and our common humanity should have compelled us to do long ago. Break free from the idolatry, the false worship, the addiction that contributes to the culture of death. Our blessing cup is a communion with the blood of Christ, the innocent blood shed for sinners to set us free. Blood that came first through the pores of Jesus' brow as he anticipated the suffering that he was to face, and as he bound himself to the suffering of all humanity in all times and places. Blood that trickled down the face of Jesus from a crown of thorns placed on his head in mockery. A king that serves, this humble carpenter's son, a king? What a joke. Blood that flowed from the back of Jesus as he was whipped for daring to speak up to the powerful and claim his true identity as Son of God, as Messiah. Blood from the wounds of a shoulder that bore the weight of the wood, the weight of the sins of the world. Like all the shoulders that bear more than their share of the burdens of injustice and inequality. Blood from nails driven into hands and feet, and blood from the spear in the side. Blood that poured out freely to redeem the blood of Abel and so many other children of Adam and Eve. That blood which cries out from the ground. Our tradition speaks of the Eucharist, of the Mass, whose institution we celebrate tonight as the unbloody sacrifice. But the readings of today and tomorrow sure speak of blood. Blood, the necessary life-giving fluid that courses through our bodies. Blood, the taboo that made people ritually unclean and unable to enter the temple. Blood, the identifier and the carrier of our illnesses. And blood, that which binds families together generation after generation. Blood spilled out, blood poured out, blood to be drunk in memory of the one who said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood." A cup he himself wished could have passed him by. Jesus knew that his hour had come to pass from this world to the Father. And he knew that the route of passage would be even more painful, more bloody than his people's passage from the desert after their liberation from slavery. Jesus would face death again. He would face death as when he called Lazarus forth from the tomb. But now he would experience it in himself, in all its pain. Experience it from the inside. That is what the incarnation is all about. Experiencing flesh and blood. God experiencing flesh and blood and giving it over to us. That is what these 3 sacred days are all about. The passing over from death to life. He loved his own who were in the world, and he loved them to the end, to the extreme. He loved them enough to sit at table with them and listen as each one proclaimed their willingness to die for him. And even as the betrayer dipped his bread in the same dish as Jesus. He loved them enough to say, "This is my body that is for you." The unleavened bread at that table, which recalled the hasty departure from Egypt, made in a hurry as they were preparing to escape, that bread becomes the flesh of the incarnate God. He loved them enough to say, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood," transforming the Passover wine, which was used to cheer God's and Israel's victory, into the very blood that is the price of God's ultimate victory, and the blood that is the fullest demonstration of that extreme love. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the death of the Lord until he comes. So we're instructed to remember. In the setting of a festive meal that was itself designed to remember God's saving acts of the past, Jesus enters into his own and ultimate saving act, and he asks us to remember. We began Lent with the admonition to remember. Remember that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. The most frequent admonition in the whole of the Hebrew Scriptures is to remember. Remember that we too were once aliens and strangers in a foreign land. When Jesus' disciples one day had the nerve to ask him to dismiss the crowds because they looked hungry and tired, Jesus asked them to remember. Remember how he fed the multitudes with a few loaves and fishes. He told them, "You yourselves give them something to eat." Tonight, these 3 days, we are asked to remember. Or better yet, we are asked to do this in remembrance of him. To serve unselfishly, to take the role of the servant in washing feet, to welcome the stranger, to feed the poor and heal the sick, to work to eliminate the slaughter of the innocents, to lay down our lives and to take them up again, to eat this bread and drink this cup of the blood of the covenant. Do this in remembrance of me.